One. Wow, lots of people there already. How exciting. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Healthy Living Live. My guest today, well, not only one of my favorite people in general, but probably my favorite person to interview, none other than Dr. Doug Lisle. Dr. Lisle is the founder of the website esteemdynamic.com, where you can actually book a private consultation that will rock your world and change your life. He's a psychologist at both the McDougall Live-In Program and the North Health Center, both located in Santa Rosa, California. He is the host of the weekly podcast, Beat Your Genes, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time on Blog Talk Radio. And you can listen to over 100 archived episodes on Blog Talk Radio or iTunes. And he's also the author of The Pleasure Trap, co-author, one of the finest books ever written on the topic, probably the best. And it is going to be coming out in audio format soon, both in CD and on Audible. So make sure you're signed up to be on my mailing list at eatunprocessed.com so that we can notify you when this book is in audio. So thank you so much for being here again, Dr. Lisle.
Oh, it's a great pleasure.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk a little bit about stress eating. But before I turn it over to Dr. Lisle, I wanted him to expound on something that he talked about in the most recent McDougall webinar, which you can find on drmcdougall.com on the webinar page, when Gustavo had asked a question from a viewer who thought that whenever she ate potatoes, she gained weight, and Dr. Lisle explained that the scale may go up a couple of pounds, but she's not gaining fat. And he talked about people that are what he calls scale monkeys, that obsessively weigh themselves. And I encourage you to listen to that interview, watch that interview. But I wanted him to expound on the aspect of how it affects us emotionally or mentally when we're a scale monkey and weighing ourselves every day, because he's already proven that there's no efficacy in doing that physiologically, that he talked about how weight is really lost and how much we lose each day. But so many people in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program weigh themselves obsessively every day, multiple times a day. It affects their mood. It affects their self-esteem. It even affects what they eat. Because what I hear from some of the participants is that, well, if I don't weigh myself, I don't know, how will I know how much to eat? How will I be able to stay on track without the accountability? Some of the people say that if the number is lower than what they hoped, they use that as an excuse to actually eat more, which derails their weight loss efforts. If the number is higher than they wanted, they'll say they use that as an excuse to binge because they're so disappointed. So I lost 50 pounds and kept it off for over 5 years. I didn't even own a scale. So please talk a little bit about how weighing yourself every day can be detrimental to your emotional health and how it's really not helping you lose weight.
Yes, very good question. Boy, this is a big one. So this is going to take a little bit of doing to sort of lay this out, so that people can understand this. And this, hopefully, we're recording this so they can listen to it multiple times, because there's a lot of little links in the chain here for this that people need to grasp and get under their hands so that they can slowly work themselves away from this trap. Now, let's talk about why people are weighing themselves every day. Obviously, they are trying to lose weight or maintain their weight, or this is all about their weight, or they wouldn't be weighing themselves. So they're concerned about their weight, and if they're weighing themselves daily or multiple times a day, I know something about their personality already. Okay, we just found out that they are highly conscientious, or they would not be doing this. So they're wanting to do the right thing, and they're trying to really keep on top of it. They're essentially they're getting a grade every day about whether or not they're doing well or not doing so well. Now, this is a mistake. And so let's back up and figure out why this is a mistake before we go further. So we're going to talk about the facts first, and then we're going to circle around and talk about the psychology of this that's going to be associated with this. So the first issue is the facts. So what will happen is that people's weight will fluctuate. It's not uncommon for people's weight to fluctuate 1% up or down in a given day. It could be a lot more than that, but 1% is not atypical at all. That would be normal. So if you're 150 pounds, it's not surprising at all that one day you're up 1.5 pounds, or the next day you're down 1.5 pounds. So your weight would easily fluctuate, actually even 2 pounds up or 2 pounds down on a given day. Now the question is, it would seem reasonable that we would be watching our weight and watching our diet and watching the influence of our diet on weight, and attempting to essentially look for a correspondence, or what's called a correlation, between what we're eating and our weight. This is a huge mistake, because on a day-to-day basis, there's absolutely no correlation between what you eat and your weight. The correlation is effectively zero in terms of, so let's look at and see why this is so. What your weight is you're mostly made out of water. That's pretty much what you are. You're more or less a hot water tank. So that's pretty much what you're made out of, is water. And you got some bones and teeth, and Alan Goldhammer has more teeth. If you ever see him smile, he's got big teeth and he's got a lot of them. Okay, always did. They're all natural too. So you've got some bones and some teeth, but you got a little bit of tissue in there, but mostly you're water. And you've also got some fat. So what's going to happen though is, because you're mostly made out of water, that if your water weight goes up and down 1%, then your weight is going to go up and down quite a bit, 1 pound or 2. Whereas the fat content in your body can only change very, very slowly in very small amounts. So a person that is doing an outstanding job at their diet, maybe that they're significantly overweight and maybe they're losing 5 pounds a month for a year, that would be spectacular for somebody to do that. So that's something that you did, AJ. And so that was a spectacular odyssey that happened for a while. But if we actually look and see what's happening there, that would be 5 pounds in a month, which means we're losing about 80 ounces. So we're losing about 80 ounces a month of fat over about 30 days. So we're losing about, in that case, 2 2/3 ounces. So that's rapid weight loss, is about 2 2/3 ounces. 2 ounces a day is very, very significant weight loss. 1 ounce a day is not trivial. So a person that loses 1 ounce a day for a year is going to lose about 25 pounds in a year. So what I'm getting at here is that from one day to the next, you're not losing 1 pound. The scale goes down 1 pound. You didn't lose 1 pound of fat. If you did a great job at your diet, you likely lost 1 ounce. You may have lost up to 2 ounces. And in usual cases, where people are very, very overweight, and they went from a very rich diet to a very lean diet, they could lose as much as 4 ounces in a day, maybe even 5 ounces for a period of time. This would be spectacular change. And I have a few people who have done that. But almost all the people that we're talking to are not going from a very high weight where they ate a very, very rich diet before, and now they're eating a really lean diet. Most people that we're working with, AJ, are actually moderately overweight, and they've actually been eating quite a good diet. And now from there, we're making a modest change to try to go, maybe, for example, from a little bit of a cheating McDougall diet that they were eating before, to now we've gone to an ultimate weight loss diet, which is now somewhat tighter. And that difference is not as great as it is from somebody who's 300 pounds and 150 pounds overweight that's been eating a conventional diet with both fists. And now they go from there to even a good solid McDougall diet. That difference is phenomenal. And so as a result, what we're going to see is extraordinarily fast weight loss for a period of time. And that extraordinarily fast weight loss is 4 or 5 ounces a day. That's what it is. That's how much fat they're going to lose. Most people, if they do a great job, they're losing 2 ounces a day. If you've got significant weight to lose and you do a really good job, you're going to lose 2 ounces a day. Now, that's 5 pounds a month. Keep in mind then that 2 ounces a day, you can't spot that on a scale. There's no way for you to spot that on a scale. The only way that they could, with very sophisticated equipment, if they put you in a dunk tank every single morning, under the best equipment in the world, they might be able to detect with some reliability whether or not you had lost any fat in the last 24 hours as a result of your diet and your exercise program. Okay. Maybe they could detect it. They probably could, but your scale can't detect it and you can't detect it. And there's nothing about your record keeping that can detect this, not a chance. So when your scale goes up a pound in a day, it's not because you gained a pound of fat, because you are not capable of gaining a pound of fat in a day. About the most fat that you're capable of gaining in a day is about what? 2 ounces. That's about as much fat as a human being can possibly gain in a day. And it's about as much fat as a human being can lose in a day. If you do a great job and you're overweight, you lose 2 ounces. If you do a horrendous job and you eat crap with both hands and pile it in and stuff yourself up to the gills, you possibly could gain a couple of ounces. This is actually the nature of the beast. Now, so in other words, your fat content on your body is extremely stable from day to day. It is so stable that we see that in the average American woman gains 2 pounds a year as she's eating a very rich diet. From her 16th birthday to her 36th birthday, she gains 2 pounds a year is all. So over 20 years, she gains 40 pounds. So when she has reached 40 pounds overweight on her 36th birthday, this happened literally, it was literally happening 32 ounces a year across 12 months. You're talking 2 ounces a month. Very subtle. Okay, not 2 ounces a day, 2 ounces a month. That's actually the typical fluctuation of weight that you're going to see in a human. Now, when you have radical dietary change, it can speed up to 2 ounces a day. That's pretty spectacular. Now, this being the case, this hopefully gives you pause that if your weight goes up 2 pounds overnight from the day before, this is not the time to reach for the razor blades and slit your wrists. Okay, this is not the time to say, oh my God, see, look, I can't lose any weight. Just forget it. Bring on the Cheetos and the beer, and we're gonna have a vegan party on rich crap. Okay, because obviously none of this is going to work. Now, your fat content of your body is very likely, in fact, it's probably just about as likely to have dropped 2 ounces as it has been to go up 2 ounces. In other words, if you've been eating reasonably intelligent food, but your weight goes up a pound overnight, you probably dropped 2 ounces of fat because you ate intelligent food. All that has happened is that your water weight has gone up. Now let's look at about this. Your water weight is very sensitive to sodium. So it's going to turn out that your kidneys are filtering sodium out of your bloodstream, and as they filter more sodium and keep the sodium content very low, then the fluid content of your body is down at the appropriate minimum but sufficient amount that should be in there. So as a result, when you eat sodium, even a little extra sodium, what's going to happen is you'll suddenly start absorbing more water. You don't get it out of the air. It just means when you eat an apple, instead of most of that water being excreted easily, if you've eaten some sodium along with it, suppose you ate something that, I don't know, you ate a perfectly healthy thing, but it had some extra sodium in it. You had a tomato sauce and it had some sodium in there, and it was a perfectly excellent sauce, but the sodium content is slightly higher than everything else that you're eating. So it's going to turn out that over the next 24 hours, you may absorb about a pound of water that is now in you. It's not fat. And when you step on the scale, you think, oh my God, I shouldn't eat that stuff. I shouldn't have had, this or that or the other that had the tomato sauce on it, or whatever else it is that you ate. You should have had the potatoes because the potatoes are making me fat. Potatoes aren't making you fat. Potatoes are 1% fat. They're about the lowest fat food that there is in nature. And they're not going to make you fat. They're not going to put fat on you. But here's what will happen. That your liver stores glycogen, and you also store glycogen in your muscles. This is sugar. This is what you're designed by nature to run on. That's what your brains are running on right now, and your body, and you're keeping your core temperature up and everything else under the sun. You are a carbohydrate or sugar burning machine. That's what you are. And you have a storage tank, and your liver is a storage tank, and you'll store about a pound of glycogen in your liver. So that's about 1,800 calories are stored in your liver. That's what stands between you and ketosis. So if you don't eat for a day, the average woman burns about 1,900 calories a day. So it'll take you about 24 hours if you stop eating to burn your way through your glycogen. Now, when people eat less in a day and they lose some weight, they think, see, I was a good girl. I lost weight. The scale went down 1.5 pounds because I didn't eat very much today. You didn't lose any fat. Zero. When you did that to yourself, you did not lose any fat at all. And let me explain why. Because you started the day with 1,800 or 1,900 calories of glycogen stored in your liver. So when you ate a 500 calorie a day thing and you gritted your teeth, and so therefore you effectively intermittently fasted or semi-fasted, and you wake up tomorrow morning and you're 2 pounds lighter, and you're thinking, see, that's what I did. I ate less food. I was a good girl. I lost 2 pounds. This is the way to the promised land. This is how I'm going to lose this 25 pounds. My dear, you didn't lose any fat at all. Zero. Okay. What happened is you just burned of that, you ate 500 calories and you just burned 1,300 calories of glycogen out of your liver that wasn't fat. It was sugar that you're carrying in a little backpack that we call your liver. It's not fat on your body at all. It's not stored material. So you've lost nothing in terms of fat that day. And when you lost the 2 pounds, what you really lost was the following. For every pound of glycogen that you store in your liver, you also have to store about 2 or 3 pounds worth of water. So that's how that works. I forget what the ratio is. I think it's 3 to 1, but I'm not exactly sure. I believe it is. So if you add a 1/2 pound of glycogen to your liver because you eat some potatoes, so we store up some glycogen from a big nice meal of good healthy potatoes, then what's going to happen is that not only do you have a 1/2 pound of glycogen that gets stored, you have 1.5 pounds of water that comes along with it. So this is why people think when they eat carbohydrates, the carbohydrates make you fat. This is literally the misunderstanding that is partially and substantially at the root of every fiasco fad diet that you're going to see anywhere under the sun. Whether it's Beverly Hills diet, Atkins diet, South Beach diet, this or that diet, dumb diet. It's all the same. Okay, it's all this process of the fact that when people eat carbohydrates, they store that carbohydrate as glycogen, and along with it, the body will absorb water at a rate of about 3 to 1 along with it. So people gain weight when they eat some carbs, but they don't gain any fat. And it's a day-to-day phenomenon. So they will have been doing a good job eating like a bird, whatever it is that they're doing, or eating meat, for example, which is they're not going to store any glycogen behind that. So they can be depleting their glycogen stores, eating beef jerky and cheese, and they can be getting fatter as they do that. But their glycogen stores are depleted, and so they're also shedding water as a result of this. So they actually lose 3 pounds over 2 days eating meat and cheese. And they're thinking, oh boy, there it is, just like my friend says. And then they start feeling sick and they're like, no, let me go listen to Dr. Campbell again. No, I think I should be eating, potatoes and rice and beans, just like John McDougall says. And boy, I feel a lot better. My digestion is better. And I just really do believe in these people. And I think Chef AJ's right. And I think I better do that. So now what do? We go eat 3-4 potatoes just like you should. And what happens? Your weight skyrockets. You're like, oh my God, the next day I'm up 3 pounds. It's like, right, you're up 3 pounds. You just lost a couple ounces of fat and you stored a 1/2 pound of glycogen and you stored 1.5 pounds of water. And now you're healthier, better, but the scale's up higher. And now you're reaching for the razor blades and ready to kick over the whole table and tearing your hair out and you don't know what to do. Okay, so this is the fiasco, and this is why it is that day-to-day measurement of your weight by the scale is a total lie. It bears no relationship to what is happening to your very stable fat stores. This is like trying to predict the long-term stock market by watching it from hour to hour. This is impossible. You can't do it. There isn't a genius alive that can tell you where the stock market's going to be a year from now by watching what happens to that stock market in the next 7 minutes. The evidence isn't there. Only by looking over time can we see broad trends, and we can run correlation coefficients and see that the tightness of the money supply is associated with where the stock market goes. Everybody knows that, but everybody's trying to look at it. If you try to look at it from minute to minute, it's a disaster, which is why the greatest investor of our time, Warren Buffett, doesn't bother. Okay? He just buys what he considers good value, and he plans to sit on it forever, because that's how he thinks. And that's exactly what we should be thinking with respect to our diet and our weight, which is that we buy the correct food, that is our stock, and we eat the correct food, and then we are patient. So the reason why I want people to weigh themselves 3 consecutive days once a month is the following. If you measure yourself 3 consecutive days in the morning under the same conditions, same nice thin underwear, okay. So what we do is we take those 3 measurements and we average them. So that's your baseline. That's you don't have a specific weight, folks. Your weight changes from second to second. Okay, so every hour that you're on this planet just breathing, you're going to give up about 2 ounces of water just through respiration. So you don't have a weight. You have a range of weights. So over 3 days, we essentially get a range on what your weight is. And if it's 149 one day and 150 the next, 151 the next, then we take the average and you're 150. And that's our baseline. So that's our baseline for, say, April 1st. Now what I want you to do is I want you to eat intelligently and not look at the scale, because the scale is a liar. And we don't want to be intimidated or encouraged by any behavior pattern because of the scale is going up or down. That would be like trying to decide that we're going to put all of our money in the stock market because in the last 3 minutes, the stock market went up 20 points. And so therefore we think that it's going in that direction, and let's sell everything and put it all in there. No, that's not what we do. And neither when it goes down do we sell it all out and get rid of it. No, we buy and hold. We make smart moves. So the smart move is sell your meat and your cheese and your processed junk and buy whole natural foods. Those are the stocks that we want. Those are what's going to make you lean and strong and healthy. Now, then we eat those things for a month, and we eat them just the way Chef AJ tells us to, more or less, or with whatever variation works for you. And then at the end of that month, then we go back and we look and see what's happening to the stock market. And what I'm going to expect is that if the diet that you ate in the last month was a leaner, more intelligent diet than the diet that you had been eating previously, then we should expect you to lose a little bit of weight. Now, if the diet you'd been eating previously was pretty good and you've been doing a pretty good job, and now you're only doing a little bit better job, and I don't expect there to be much weight loss. If the diet you've been eating was not very good, it had a lot of cheating and Lara bars and what do we call those things? Tofutti cuties and nut butter and Ezekiel bread and maybe reasonably healthy food, but there's been a lot of rich food, and now we've knocked a lot of that out or knocked it out. Then over the next month, over a month of doing things differently, I would expect us to actually shed some fat. But I wouldn't expect us to lose a lot of weight, because the only weight that we should see be lost by the way we're going to measure this is going to be fat. It's not going to be fluctuations in water and glycogen. So a month from now, when we do 3 consecutive mornings again, and we do that in the same slinky lingerie that we did before, then we should find that what changed is that we're actually getting a look at now is the fat content of our bodies. And if the fat content of a person's body is down 2 pounds in a month, I say that's a huge victory. That means that's about 8,000 calories you have shed over 30 days. So that means you have been shedding about 250 or so calories a day, which means that your diet is outstanding and the body is doing exactly what it needs to be doing it's slowly shedding the fat stores that are excessive, and it's moving towards a better, healthier, fitter you. That's how that works. If it turns out that it's even, that you went straight across, but you have been doing a pretty good job, but you are in fact overweight, then that tells you that we have to look a little closer at some of these subtleties, and we have to see where any rich food could be sneaking into your diet. Okay, so we have to take out the microscope at that point. But we only take out the microscope after we really have seen what has taken place. And the only way to actually know what's taking place is to measure this as a month-by-month phenomenon. If you measure it day to day, folks, all that's going to happen is that you're a stock market player who's trying to guess the market and bet their chips every 15 seconds. It's a total lie. The market can go straight up for about 8 minutes, and suddenly, it just goes like that. You can watch it if you ever watch it on a moment by moment analysis. It'll go just like that. Okay, but that is actually that amount. It's a tiny little fraction went up, and then literally 8 minutes later, it turns around and goes the other direction. You have no idea where that thing is going by looking by where the broad market is going on a day-to-day basis, and you have no idea what's happening to your weight. When you look at your weight on a day-to-day basis, it gives you zero information about what is happening to the only thing that we care about, which is the amount of fat storage on your body. Okay, so that is what we have to do. The fat storage changes day to day, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 ounces at most. Those are being totally obscured by the changes in water, the changes in the amount of fecal material that's in you, the amount of urine that's in your bladder, and the amount of glycogen that is in your liver. You have vastly greater variables that are absolutely drowning out any ability to detect fat storage changes. So when you look at this on a day-to-day basis, it is not just useless, it's worse than useless, because you develop superstitious behavior associated with whether it goes up or down. And this takes you off course. Okay, so a lot of people that I work with are so conscientious, they're so determined to do well that of course, the only sensible thing to do is to check not only every day, but maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day. Okay, so in other words, they are desperate to try to get control over the situation because they want so much to be successful. Now, let me tell you what happens when you measure multiple times, a week, daily in particular. What happens is that you have a lot of anxiety about what the scale is going to show. And then if the scale shows a good number, you have a relief. Well, what that relief is, it will be a cause for neurochemical changes in your brain, such as endorphins, and you will feel a relaxed euphoria. Now, you can see what's going to happen here, and that is that you're going to get addicted to that. You're going to get addicted to the euphoria, the relaxation that comes with checking and seeing that, in fact, disaster has not struck. And then when disaster strikes and the number is up, then you're in anxious tension, then you don't eat, then you skip the apples and the bananas and the potatoes, and you just grit your teeth and grind and, I don't know, try to inhale some water. And then you come back 8 or 10 hours later and you see that the weight is down 1.5 pounds. And what happens? Euphoria. Okay, we get a relaxed euphoria. And so we get another endorphin storm goes off in your head that says, oh my goodness, the promised land, we're going to be okay after all. And so this is what's happening, is we're setting up a conditioning paradigm that is not good for you. And so this is why it's hard to break this habit. Effectively, what happens is this is not the same thing as being addicted to a supernormal stimulus like heroin or cocaine or methamphetamine, et cetera, but it's an addiction-like process. It's never going to get out of line, and it's never going to get worse, particularly because your neurochemistry in these regards are naturally buffered against overstimulating you. So in other words, you're not going to develop tolerance to your own process here. That's not how the brain will work. but you will develop a reward system inside your head that looks forward to the relief of seeing that number on the scale, and then etc. So you'll want to continue to return to this. This is essentially building an obsessive matrix, an obsessive habit. Okay, and so you will circle around and around. Anxiety goes up, then we measure, then we get this relief. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that goes on. So this is why it is that this is all counterproductive. It's all taking us in the wrong direction. It's taking us away from a longer term view of simple and directed efforts towards doing things in a way that are sensible and without a lot of anxious tension around it. And so just perform, do the organize, execute on a good plan, and then let's watch that plan and see how well that plan goes as we look at it over 30 days to 30 days intervals. Okay?
Great.
All right.
So I wanted to share a couple of comments with you that have been coming in.
Sure.
First of all, people are saying that blue is your color. They love your laugh. They're excited for the pleasure trap to be coming out on audio.
I am
Michelle
too.
says, finally, a good explanation to share with family and friends who think that carbs are evil. And I want to get to the other topic we want to discuss, but if you could answer these quickly. Verlina wanted to know how do you feel about using a tape measure, and Sonia wanted to know at what mathematical point will fat loss happen.
I have a slight bit of trouble hearing you. So the first one was, what about using a tape measure?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Again, I think tape measure is also maybe month to month would be something that might be interesting to do. But the truth is that these changes can be pretty subtle. So when you lose a pound of fat, remember that's not very much material. Think of a bottle of water, which it's a fair amount of material. That's about what a pound of fat's going to be. It's going to be essentially like a bottle of water, but it's going to be distributed all over you, and not just on the outside, but also on the inside. You have inside fat storage. So it's not like, an inch off a waistline is a big deal. So you might have to lose a fair amount to actually reliably lose an inch. And remember that inch is going to be partly dependent upon how much food is in your stomach, so you'd have to do it with the same amount of food in your stomach each time. So I think, once again, inches is reminiscent of the scale, and I don't think it's any better than the scale. I think it's probably a little bit less reliable, but it's also exhilarating. So I have a woman now that I believe you've met her, HA. She's a true norther, and she started out about 289 pounds last summer, and she has been completely diligent. She's great. And for people that are concerned that it's harder to lose weight when you're older, this lady is an older woman. She's over 60, and so here she is now taking this problem on, and she is doing it right. And now she is now in the, I think she's in the low 170s now. So she's lost about 115 pounds. And so we've done the math, and she's losing somewhere around 4 to 5 ounces a day. And I've told her that I expect it to slow down soon. In other words, she's now getting down to a weight where she's not nearly as big. But what she does is she's sort of watching this thing go, and just executes her program and is very patient. And we at the end of every month, we sit back and we take a look at what it is that we've accomplished. And then we sort of can see where we're going to be a month from now, and that gets exciting. So I think by the 1st of May, by the 1st of April, we will break into the 160s for the first time in more than 20 years. And then 2 months later, so that will be, May 1st, June 1st. By about the 1st of June, we're going to break into the 150s. That's where we're headed. So, but once again, we look at these things on a month-to-month basis, because we know from day to day, if we were focused on that, it would be demoralizing. Okay, so yeah, so the tape measure, I think, as a month-to-month kind of a thing, can also be exhilarating to see. It can be exhilarating to see that if your waistline was 36 a month ago and it's 34 now, or even 35, pretty exciting. And then 2 months from now, we see that it's 33. It's like you can really see that it's working in the same way as the weight does. Okay, and what was the second question? I forgot.
Okay, well, the second question was, when does mathematically fat loss actually occur?
When does it happen?
Yeah, that's what the question from Sonia is. At what point mathematically will fat loss happen?
At what point mathematically will fat loss happen? Well, the thing is that if you're overweight, your body is looking to shed fat. It's sort of designed to do it. And what it appears to be the case is the following, and that is that it appears that there's, I'm not going to try to explain this as if I know, because the truth is I don't know, first of all, that anyone knows. The body is full of very complicated feedback loops and control mechanisms to attempt to regulate your weight to a perfect level. And when you're overweight, one of the things that happens is that there's leptin sitting inside your fat, and that leptin will get released, and there will be a higher level of leptin in your bloodstream, and that apparently will get to your hypothalamus, and it will cause you to want to eat less. In other words, it essentially acts as an appetite suppressant. Now, this got everybody excited a few years back when they discovered this, because it turned out then that if you injected rats with leptin, they would go through some weight loss. So then everybody thought that they had the holy grail of how it is that we're going to get people to lose weight. But of course, alas and behold, what will happen is that the body will engineer its way around this. The body's too smart. So when you start tricking it, the reason why the rats are overweight or the people are overweight is because they're eating foods that are inappropriate for their natural history, and it's fooling the normal mechanisms, and they're systematically overeating. If you then take some kind of tricky way to try to shut that thing down, it turns out that the system wires its way around it. So to date, there isn't anything that is safe that can get you to lose weight. There are things that are unsafe that will work on those mechanisms. That's what all the amphetamines will do. So whether it's fen-phen or anything else under the sun, or just straight amphetamine, these things will, this is why also cigarettes will cause people to be 10 or 20 pounds lighter than they otherwise be. And this is why cigarette smokers a lot of times don't want to quit smoking, is because they're, quote, it's going to cause them to gain weight. That is the incorrect way of looking at the situation. The correct way of looking at the situation is that smoking cigarettes is so disruptive to your neurochemistry that it actually causes you to eat less than you would otherwise eat. This is not any solution for anything. This is a fiasco. And so obviously the solution to anybody that's worried about gaining weight when they quit smoking is to then quit eating the crap, and you won't gain any weight. I mean, that's the only reason why that quitting smoking would cause you to gain weight would only be if you're eating, unnaturally rich foods. So I forget what the question was again.
The question was, when does fat loss actually occur mathematically?
Oh, when does the fat loss occur? Well, it's occurring essentially on a daily basis. The system will cannibalize a little bit of fat storage if you're short. So that will happen. So now how this goes on, and when does this take place? The interesting thing is you don't need to be in ketosis for your body to start burning fat, interestingly enough. You just have to be in, so I don't know when it takes place, but if you are essentially eating a whole natural foods type diet, a lean diet, and you're overweight, what will happen is that you don't lose weight in big chunks. So people think that they do, because the scales can move, and they'll say, well, I was at a plateau for 19 days, and then suddenly I lost 2 pounds. Now, that's what was happening is you were losing an ounce a day for those 19 days. But it wasn't until all the stars aligned with your poop and your bladder and your kidney function and the amount of sodium in you and the glycogen stores and everything else that finally that pound and a half showed up on the scale. But the truth is that you were losing it at a steady process on a daily basis. That's what happens when you're losing weight. There isn't a moment. It's across a period of the hours of your life. It's slowly when you're in a situation where you're overweight, you would, all things being equal, you have the engineering to cause you to systematically undereat at that point and to cannibalize your own fat tissue. These are homeostatic drive systems that are built to aim at perfection. You were born to be beautiful. That's how you're designed. You are born to be lean and fit. Some of us are more curvy. Some of us are thinner. Some of us are big and strong. Some of us are slender. But whatever it is that your natural build is, that natural build will emerge beautifully on the diet that you were designed to eat. And so that's why suddenly now in the late 20th century and beyond, we find such a problem that people are struggling with weight so much. I want people to appreciate why it is that this is so difficult to do. For all time, all animals on this earth have struggled literally for hundreds of millions of years with the fundamental problem is to be getting enough food. That is why they are engineered the way they're engineered. And it's going to turn out that the same thing is true of humanity. So for all history, an enormous, pressing, grim concern has been, is there enough food? This was true in the most civilized, sophisticated countries in the world 100 years ago. So if you were looking at late 19th century England or early 20th century America, getting enough food was an enormously big deal. The average family in 1918, I believe it's either 46 or 54%, I can't remember, it doesn't make any difference. 50% of the family income went to buying staple groceries. That's what it was. We're not talking about going out to dinner because there weren't any restaurants. We're talking about staple groceries, half of the family income. This is consistent with what we see throughout the animal kingdom. So animals will spend about 50% of their waking hours is spent in the pursuit of food. Then they do child care, and they do, if they're lucky, they do a little bit of mating. Some of us don't do any. But the point is that there's a little bit of mating, and what there is there's an awful lot of work. And the pressing, grim concern is to get enough calories. And this was true in our country. So my mother, growing up in the Great Depression in northern Idaho in the late 1930s, literally in their town, in her little hut that she grew up in, a very humble hut that I have seen now. It turns out that they had a well dug in the front yard, and in that well, they stored sauerkraut and potatoes and onions and other root vegetables. They stored them for winter, and that's what they lived on. That's how they got through the Idaho winter, was the storage of this stuff that they put in the ground. Now, think about that. That's my mother. So that was human beings, lean, just getting enough to eat, struggling. In other words, this was how it was. And in less than a century, look at what the number one personal goal is and the number one variable associated with human self-esteem today. The number one issue is I'm too fat, and I am trying everything I can do to get myself to eat less. Okay? So just keep that in mind, that the neural programming that drives you has been exactly the opposite. The neural program that drives you is the program that says, eat the richest food in the environment, get your hands on it, and if your brother reaches for some of it, elbow him in the teeth and grab it before he can get it. That's how you're built. Okay, now, suddenly, we live in an environment of spectacular abundance. And it's not just plenty of staple groceries now. It's brilliantly engineered chemical pseudo food that is tickling the neural circuits of your pleasure centers of your brain and overshadowing the taste of natural food. So when people ask me and wring their hands at their lives and their stresses and their emotional issues and what it is that's causing them to get off track, I back up and I say, no, you're looking in the wrong place. It's not your weakness and it's not your crosses to bear from your histories. That is not what's going on. What's going on is that you have unbelievable neuroprogramming that is going to drive you, like 8 Clydesdale horses. It's going to pull you to the richest food in your environment. It's designed to do this because every single one of your ancestors had to follow those instincts in order to make sure that you would be here today. So that is the real issue. So what are we going to do about this? Well, AJ and I and John McDougall and Alan Goldhammer, Neil Barnard, Colin Campbell, all of us, we know what the issue is. The issue is, boy, you got to get control over your environment, because the environment that surrounds you is a totally bizarre, distorted, it's like a Halloween, mirror house. It's completely sending you the wrong direction and you're totally off kilter. And so that environment will draw you right to where your instincts are telling you you're doing the right thing, which is, chomp on the rich stuff. That's what it's going to tell you to do. So to get you to not do that requires really exceptional diligence and motivation. It can absolutely be done. Many people do it, but people don't do it by accident. They do it by design. Okay.
Dr. Lisle, Cynthia says that you have a good haircut. I thought you didn't know. And I love that you brought up smoking, because I tell the people in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, please quit smoking first, but they won't listen to me. And it's amazing how many people, if smoking really worked, we wouldn't have any overweight smokers. So
right.
It obviously doesn't work that great. And I love that you said that weighing yourself every day is not just useless, it's worse than useless. So people are actually asking questions about how do they know when they're at their ideal weight? Do they use that formula about 5 feet? A 5-foot woman to be 100 pounds and 5 pounds per inch. Actually, Dr. Furman's is much stricter. It's 95 pounds for a 5-foot woman and 4 pounds per inch. Dr. Walter Kempner's is even more strict. Should they go by BMI, or how do they know?
Let me tell you how you know. When you've got a fat roll hanging over your gut, then you know that you're overweight. There are the individual differences here. These charts drive me crazy. I met some guy at it was either True North or McDougall, that he says, just this nicest guy. This was 2-3 years ago. Handsome. And he says, well, the doc says, that I need to lose, not Dr. McDougall, but I think the chart, I've not even remembered the story exact. The chart was that he needed to lose like 25 pounds. This guy was in superb shape. He was strong as an ox. He was about 6 feet, 220 pounds. And the charts would say like obese. This guy was obese like I don't know, like an Olympic bobsled champion is obese. Like there's no way this guy was obese. And so the individual differences are huge. So there are ladies that are naturally thin and in great shape at 5'4" and 110 pounds. That's how they're built. There's other women that are 5'4" and 140 pounds, and they are in good shape. Okay, so if you look at them, they're just stronger. They're curvier. They're a different design. So Alan Goldhammer and I differ. Our weight differs by 20%. He's 20% heavier than I am, and we're effectively the same height. But we're just different. And he eats twice as much as I do, by the way. He's a way bigger eater. He is not overweight. He's in superb condition. He's just a bigger human being. And so that's individual differences. So how do you tell? Like I could be overweight 5 pounds heavier than I am now. If I were 5 pounds heavier and it wasn't muscle, if I just started eating a bunch of rich foods and then I gained 5 pounds of fat, then I would be 5 pounds overweight, and Alan would be no pounds overweight, and he'd be 30 pounds heavier than me. So what counts is, what do your fat storage looks like? And if you've got some fat storage that you can feel and that you can see, fine. A little bit is completely healthy and totally great. So there's nothing in the world wrong with it. You can tell by looking if the fat stores are excessive. Okay, that's look around your middle. That's this very simple way. If your midsection has a bunch of extra weight on it, then it's a problem. If your midsection is quite lean with a modest amount of fat on that midsection, you're fine. Then that's nothing to worry about. So yeah, don't be chasing a number. This is another thing that even though my girl that I'm working with we know that we're heading to 169 soon in the next week or so, and we're going to be headed to 159 soon. But at some point, though, we don't have any idea where we're going. I think she's about 5'5" or so. And so I don't know where we're going to go, 138, 128, 118. I don't have any idea. And I don't know what her biology is, where it's going to take us. I only know what food we're going to eat. And whenever we get there, we will stabilize. I remember, AJ, I had no idea where you were going to wind up. None. I thought that might be 128 pounds. And had we wound up 128 pounds, it would have been great. You know what I mean? And it would have been, hey, well, that's where it was. The fact that we went 10 pounds south of there was like, I had no idea. We didn't know. And so, but whatever it was, had it been 138 pounds and you had been stable on healthy food and just a bit curvier, it'd be like, hey, then that's where it is. So don't be chasing a number. Just look to do a very good, consistent program. That's what we want to do.
Wow. This has been absolutely amazing, Dr. Lisle. People are loving it. And, I want to respect your time. So rather than go on to another topic now, would you mind coming back at your earliest convenience so we can discuss this topic of stress eating?
Absolutely. Anytime. And I'm up for it anytime. This is great.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Dr. Lisle. It's been brilliant. It's going to be on YouTube probably the next hour or so you can watch it again. And please share this with your friends. And remember to listen to Dr. Lisle's weekly podcast, Your Genes, on iTunes or Blog Talk Radio. It's fantastic. And you can even ask him questions there as well. Or book a private consultation on his website, which will be on the screen, esteemdynamic.com. Thanks, everyone, for watching another episode of Healthy Living Live. I'm Chef AJ, and I make healthy taste delicious, and Dr. Lisle explains how we do. Take care. I never can end this. It's so funny. I just click and click and click. Come on. I'll be here all day clicking. Oh, come on, please. Well, I guess